Hi, this is architect Rohan Chavan, and as a part of the Glass Academy webinar, and on the occasion of the World Toilet Day, I am presenting a small lecture titled People, Objects, and Environment, which focuses on the idea of uh, public infrastructure uh, and how public infrastructure should be conceptualized in our cities and neighborhoods. My talk today is going to focus on three aspects uh, that deal with the city, that is people, objects, and environment. And primarily here I'm looking at objects not only as street furniture, but even as buildings, because at the scale of the city, a building itself also becomes like an object. And then how these three components interact at the city level, and then how does infrastructure gets its architecture and gets shaped by it. That is something I would like to share today. So when we look at these three aspects, these two parameters come to my mind. Like what are the interactions and the opportunities we are providing at the city level through the infrastructure and architecture. The first, we will look at interactions. I'm just trying to demonstrate this through some basic sketches. Uh, so at the city level, the interactions are between three entities. First is between people. Then the second is between the people and the objects they use for interaction, or even the street furniture that is available. And the third is the environment. So sometimes these interactions happen under a man-made temporary structure or maybe under a tree, but the idea is to have a comforting atmosphere to foster this interaction. And then that's where these three entities become homogeneous and become important at city level, where people, objects, and environment dwell at the same time. And on the right hand side, I'm just showing you an artwork by Frederick Lewis to demonstrate uh, this idea where people, objects, and environment are dwelling together at the same time. And a few artworks by Edwin Lott Weeks to kind of demonstrate how these interactions happen uh, before independence or after independence, like immediately after independence. So here we can see like people casually hanging out just outside their house, and it is under a temporary structure. It's not even like a permanent architecture, but it just allows them to kind of be with the city and be a part of the social fabric or the in-between space between the buildings. And on the right hand side, we see a typical chabutara in Ahmedabad, let's say, where that by the virtue of that chabutara, one is able to create a little shop or a market below it. And then that's where, again, a city provides an opportunity to kind of interact with people. A similar example, again a temporary structure that fosters interaction. It creates that in-between space that allows for those interactions. Then at some point it transforms into like a market, which is very temporary, and the same market can be removed and installed somewhere else, and the space again becomes empty for a different activity. So that's the beauty of the temporary structure or the temporary nature of the structure, that allows for a particular activity at a particular time of the day and during a particular season. And then looking at the opportunities, there is always this question, like what opportunities is the city providing to its people. So there's always this example that has been in my mind about this Asiatic Society library, uh, which has these huge steps right in front of the library. Now these steps are a part of the library, but the way they are placed, it kind of becomes like a space for people to rest or sit and wait. And based on different times of the year, these steps are then used for uh, a concert, like an amphitheater, or uh, even sometimes as a backdrop for photo shoots, or even at times as a performance. Yeah. So here, I think the simple steps are like the primary function is just to give an access to the library, but the nature of the steps, the location, it clearly gives that opportunity to be much more than what it is meant for. And I think that's the whole intent of uh, what we are trying to do in our projects, like not to limit ourselves to its primary activity, but kind of go beyond that and look at various other activities that can take place within the infrastructure. And this is an important example. So the left hand side is the Swiss knife. So one can see that it can perform 32 different functions. But once we kind of close the knife, it is just that red piece which has all these different knives inside. And similarly, on the right hand side, you can see. So this is like a graphic we had done for the coronavirus campaign for one of my friends called Umbrella Design. But this image shows the ability of a human being to perform different activities within a given set of infrastructure. Like we have only two hands, but those two hands can read and write and eat and play. So that is the ability that we have. So why not use that, in projects or in the infrastructure, rather than them being limited to its uh, basic activity. So public infrastructure should go beyond its primary function only when only then we are aiming for interaction of the city and people. So today I'm going to discuss three ideas. One is the idea of the light box. Second is courtyard as infrastructure. And third is the truck drivers community. So the idea of the light box, I would like to share a film first, and then we can dive into the discussion, in detailed discussion of this project.
The brief given by the NGO was pretty straightforward. They wanted a restroom for women and a WC for the handicapped. It actually helped us to take the word restroom quite literally and create a resting space. The public toilet is just 30% and the 70% of the space is just landscape where women can come, sit, maybe read a book, a newspaper. That triggered a new concept of what public toilets could be. The material palette is completely governed by how the climate works, and secondly, how we can ease the maintenance of the restroom. If you see, all the outer walls are made of stainless steel, which are easy to clean, and it's protecting the restroom from the outer side. 70% of the space is the landscape, so there we have just defined it with perforated metal, which allows a lot of natural light coming inside, a lot of ventilation happens. It's more like you're indoor but still you're in the outdoors. The whole idea of this tree, it takes you back to the vernacular setting in the villages. Trees are always looked up as the best resting places. People like very casually go and sit under the tree and then they start chatting and then they spend hours. Earlier we had plans to plant trees and create like a lot of lands. The tree was already there, so we thought like why not build around it and then use the natural setting. The most sustainable architecture that we have resides in the villages, because there are no architects who go and design those buildings. It's just the users. They respond to the climate, they respond to their needs. So this whole prototype really responds to the city's needs.
That's the documentation of the light box that we had done, and it was a very important idea for us as a practice, not only for the infrastructure projects but even our architecture projects, which kind of helped us to set up a certain kind of a design ideology, a design language, and also an attitude towards how like the issues that the projects should look at. So this is a very important picture for me, and I think it clearly states the problem of what that light box was addressing. So this woman is standing in the city and with her nose shut, and we can clearly identify that she's not comfortable in that space, and which also means that the cities are not that livable and comfortable for women. And that was the whole idea behind setting up the light box, uh, which uh, uh, which turned out to be pretty successful in what we were trying to do. Uh, Now, here I would just like to take you back to how we initiated this project. It was more of an idea that we came up with and pitched to an NGO called Agasti, who were working at that time uh, in sustainable toilets. And so they had come up with a brief that they wanted a toilet for women with a certain ideas and certain dimensions in an area. But we kind of took that as a basic brief and then deconstructed it to create uh, a project that could speak much more than what it is meant for. And then we teamed up and went to the commissioner to kind of showcase our idea, and then he also got excited with that, and then he gave us permission to kind of build. And then we were given three sites where we could build this project. So out of that, we selected this site, which we can see on the screen, and it is on a green patch on the highway. And it's between the service road and the highway. There's a green belt, and we purposely selected this because we wanted the first prototype to be on the best possible location, so it would be easier for them to understand and kind of imagine the other prototypes that they want to build. And you can clearly see that we have just marked the site with some plastic strips. And the moment we did that, the people organically started coming and resting under that tree. So this idea of restroom or the concept of the restroom became successful at the first stroke that we were trying to do. With the first stroke of just marking the site. And I mean, before this plastic strip, people did not even notice that there is a tree and we can go and sit under it. So this idea of definitions becomes so important in cities. I mean, in cities we don't have to like build very expensive infrastructures. I mean, if it's for a toilet, then we have to kind of construct walls and build structures. But for other things, we just need simple definitions that kind of define like what activity can happen where. And then these are the four principles that we continue to work with. And the idea was to be true to these principles. Only then we would be able to achieve a prototype that is a little different and a little unique in terms of the architecture as well as the function it is trying to perform. So the first one is definitely the idea of a restroom. Second, we thought was an ample sunlight and ventilation within the public toilets would be uh, far more better to avoid the naturally growing bacteria or any kind of viruses coming into the space. And the third is a seamless surface, so for easy maintenance, because in India, people are not trained to uh, clean spaces. They just use the basic tools that are available in the market and they clean it the way they know. So then we thought by the virtue of design, we would like to address this issue so it becomes easier for them also, and the toilet even gets well maintained. And the last is the skylights, because we did a research and found out that in public toilets, windows don't work that efficiently, in the sense that a lot of garbage is being stuffed into the windows and becomes very cumbersome to clean them. So it was important that we kind of avoid the windows and do skylights with artificial vents to kind of keep the air circulation inside the toilet, and the garbage goes into the dustbin. So this is the first diagram that we had presented, which had that central space, which is the landscape garden, and then there are four blocks on either side, which are the toilets. But just to kind of uh, just to have a certain kind of confirmation on this diagram, we made a few other diagrams as well. So this is another diagram which shows that the garden interlocks and then the toilet blocks are within these gardens. The third is the toilet blocks are towards the end, and then the garden and resting spaces along the street. And then the last one is the toilets on one side, and then the garden is on the other side. But considering the flexible nature and the adaptability, we thought this prototype works really well, because the widths are only 10 feet available in the city, but the length is not given. Sometimes it might be 20 feet, 24 feet, or 30 feet, or 35 feet. So in that case, this becomes like a very useful prototype to kind of expand in space. So then that's the idea, where this center becomes like a resting space, more like a garden. So that's why we positioned it around the tree, because earlier we thought of creating a landscape within the space, but on the green belt we found a tree, so we positioned around it, and then that's where we had those benches where people can come and where women can come uh, and maybe use it as a restroom for resting. On either side there are toilets, and the space can even be used for as a waiting space, so women can wait in this space, and maybe if someone is coming to pick them up, they don't have to stand on footpaths with their nose shut. So that was the whole idea, and that's the plan of the prototype. So you can clearly see the toilets at two ends. So on the left hand side, there's an Indian WC, a Western WC, and there's a little niche for a wash basin. Then a little niche for baggage, or if someone is carrying a baby, then that niche gets useful. And on the right hand side, there's a nursing station in the upper right corner, and the lower right corner we have a handicap toilet, which is accessed from outside. So that has a separate access. And on the right hand side we see the picture of the toilet with which is lined with perforated metal on both the sides, so which keeps it well ventilated and well lit. So below this prototype, we have like a network of biodigesters. So the idea is, even all the waste that gets decomposed on site, uh, it is not let into any nearby rivers or nalas. So we are just trying to decompose all the waste on site, and the output is just wastewater. So here we can see the plinth work under progress, the foundation work under progress, and uh, the open wells are the set of biodigesters that are placed below the plinth. Yeah, that's the plan. So in the bottom, one biodigesters are the three tanks, one large and two small. So there are two biodigesters, and on the top, the one that says number one are two water tanks, and to the right of it is the a pit for to kind of control the growth of that tree, which around which we were building the toilet. Yeah, so first we finished this construction up to the plinth. So we got everything right, where the tree was kind of uh, secured, and then we had those two openings for to access the water tank, and everything was like the plinth was made like super clean. And then before we started the construction of the top, we just thought of analyzing the heights, so that we don't spend unnecessarily, because the government projects, we are always tight on budget, and becomes very important to kind of optimize what we are trying to do. So that's where we decided to restrict the height of the building as 9 feet 6 inches, and 7 feet 6 inches was the height of the uh, toilet, and the 2 feet is the space for the water tank. Yeah, so that's the section based on those dimensions, and below are the set of biodigesters, which kind of takes care of all the waste that is produced on site. And the left hand side, you can see the image, and how it opens out into the city and the green, etc. Then yeah, so that's the image that kind of shows that transparent skin, which kind of just defines the block. So even the idea was to kind of maintain the same climatic conditions even after this project was built, and we were kind of successful to do that by using the perforated metal. And inside the toilet blocks, we have this material palette, but more to focus on the individual blocks. So inside, it's all seamless, so it's easy to clean. And so this is the handicap toilet. It's 5 feet by 5 feet. That's why we can see that one joint. Otherwise, all other blocks are 4 by 4, and which are joint free. And then again, this transparent skin that kind of makes the landscape a little omnipresent. And at night, what happens is the whole effect kind of reverses. So if you see during the daytime, the light comes inside, and then that's where uh, the spaces get lit. But at night, the light comes from the box, and then it kind of lits the surrounding. And also, the well-lit surroundings are safe for women. So that was again another idea that we had in mind to kind of secure this place, like at least a certain radius around this area. So this prototype is about the truck drivers community, because here we started working on a project which is called as the Pause Restrooms. And while working on that project, and by the virtue of its location, we kind of came across this subject. And that's where we then started diving deep into this idea of the truck drivers community, and the problems that they face, and what could be the solutions for that. So I'll be sharing two projects here. So one that we have built, and the other one is under construction. But here primarily we were working with the idea of color for the first project, because the idea is since not since, but public utilities should be quickly identified in the urban landscape. Because if we look around, for example, the Xerox signage is always black on yellow, or the BEST buses are always red in color, or the auto rickshaws, like different cities have a different color coding. Like in Maharashtra, it's yellow and black, or in Ahmedabad, it's green and yellow, etc. So then that becomes like an identification to communicate with that particular infrastructure, and it becomes very easy for the eye to locate it. And the other idea was the bright colors, they absorb the dirt and dust on surfaces that forms due to the human intervention, and which clearly we can see in these two images. And these two images were a kind of uh, idea into the thought process, because both these objects are red and they are quickly identified. And on the London telephone booth, you can see the bottom is a little dirty, but it's not. I mean, it doesn't matter. Still, that telephone booth is looking quite nice because of that color. So for the paused restrooms, conceptually, it was like a big pavilion, and so here the idea was more of a toilet which was centrally located, and the pavilion would allow the verandas on the periphery, uh, uh, so that people can navigate. Yeah, and that's the diagram. So the black is the built, and the gray is the unbuilt. So the pavilion on the top is exclusively for the truck drivers, and the one below is for the common public. So we have so handicap and the female toilet share a common veranda, so that becomes like a more secure space in the front. So the male toilet is accessed by a corridor at the back. Then there's a Suvidha Kendra for the truck drivers, which has banking facilities as well as depositing ATM and ATM facilities and depositing money. There's a tuck shop which can be used by both the common public as well as the truck drivers. So that becomes quite useful. A grooming center only for the truck drivers, because since they drive for so many hours, they need some space where they can get a haircut or a little head massage, uh, and an Indian WC for the truck drivers. So because we did not want the truck drivers to come into the male and female toilet section, because the way they use the facilities is completely different, and I think we should kind of respect that and then keep them separate. And yeah, so that's the overall plan, where you can see the various components, how they come together, and etc. And it's a public space diagram where yellow is circulation, interaction, and circulation and interaction. And that's how this campus looks like. It's like a one big pavilion, and inside which there are different facilities that are available for different activities. So so when one arrives at this point, we have the like multiple entry points into different spaces, and I feel that's the beauty of it. So the moment you come here, you have uh, options, and you can make a choice at this point. And so people don't kind of keep going into spaces and keep asking where to go and all that. And the signage does its work, and the signage is in two languages, so it's easy to communicate for both the classes. Yeah, and that's the main entry. So this entry is into the common area, not the common, the male and female toilet area and handicap area. Yeah, and that's the veranda I was talking about, which is shared between the female toilet and the handicap toilet. And see, the idea is here we are referencing these spaces to a lot of domestic spaces that are usually there in the villages, like the space outside the doorstep. There's a little veranda where people can sit and chat and interact. So in a way, people feel very comfortable when they visit the campus, but yet it is put it in a very contemporary box, I would say, like a very stark red and very contemporary roof. So there's a mix of a vernacular and a contemporary architecture constantly. So the people then they start relating to the spaces, but yet they feel they are in a new space. These are some light studies we did on the way, just to understand how the light is coming in that space. Yeah, and all spaces are naturally lit. And this open space is not open to sky, but it is open to roof, as you can see on the right hand side in the section. So the pavilion kind of covers this open space, which is open to roof. Yeah. So this is inside the women's toilet, and then after that we take this corridor and go into the male toilet area, and there's the male toilet lobby, and there are some basins outside. And you purposely kept the basins outside so people don't, crowd the space inside the toilet. And again, some light studies inside the male toilet, just to kind of understand the intensity of light, how it is. Yeah. So this is an interesting detail we kind of conceived to have a fresh atmosphere inside the toilet with plants and natural light behind the urinals. Uh, so the idea was to kind of uh, help to dry the toilets quickly, and also to create good light conditions inside the toilet. Yeah, that's the light during the normal day. And based on the sun direction, the light keeps on changing its angle. So that is quite fascinating. And then we come outside and move towards the truck driver's facility. And on the way, there's a tuck shop. And then that's the entry point to the truck driver's area, where we first come onto a grooming, the hair cutting salon. Yeah, so this is a very little grooming center where the it's like one person can sit at a time and get a good haircut and a massage, etc. And there's a recreational space where these truck drivers can sit. So here also the idea is, though we are using a contemporary building, but if you see, the beds and everything are very traditional, so which they can relate to, or even the covering on top of the bed is quite relatable. So, and that's where the idea of a domestic space, or a space that one can own or relate to, becomes important, because only then people start feeling comfortable in a particular atmosphere or a particular space. Yeah, and that's the side elevation, which I really like. It looks very contemporary. I mean, from this elevation, no one would imagine there are such domestic spaces within this building, but somehow we have tried to pull that off. And in this elevation, the thick horizontal strip is just to cut off a view into the toilet, because if you see behind that, you have those open to roof kind of spaces, and from where the picture is taken, there is a building which has a first floor, so one can even look into that space. So it's actually adding to the design, so something that is a concern, then we add it into the project and becomes a part of the design. And here the signages became very important, because uh, like in such projects, there are no people around to tell you where to go and what to do, and what not to do. So in that case, signages become very important. And so this logo was done by my friend, who helped us with all the communication design. And we had these signages right from 500 meters on the highway, to kind of uh, uh, make people aware that there is some facility down the road, so they can just check in and use it. And these are some icons we had developed specifically for this project, which are very precise and very easy to understand. But this and again, signage in another language, so hoping that all truck drivers cannot read English, so we had to keep this in the local language. And then later, along with the icons, we did English and Hindi slash Marathi, both as signages, so everyone can read what is being written. And these are door metal signs which are inside the toilet on the doors. Yeah, even these are all door metal signs. And so this is a very important aspect I would like to speak on a few minutes. See, in public infrastructure, what is important is not only the design that we do, but after that, who is taking care of that space or who is taking care of the facility. And I think the pause restroom is successful because there is a trained staff that is involved in this project who is taking care of the wear and tear or the daily maintenance or the daily cleaning. So these 5 people, they have been trained properly in terms of how to clean a urinal or how to clean a WC or how to clean an Indian WC, and they know very well. So even we had trained staff over here, we still did not shy away from the idea of seamless surfaces. So here we have not used epoxy floor, but we have used granite for its durability. But still, by making bigger slabs of granite, we have tried to reduce the number of joints. So even if they're trained, we have tried to reduce a little burden on them of cleaning every joint. And even inside the toilet, we never saw tiles on the walls. So it's all washable paint. So that also becomes a little easy. So this works hand in hand. So through design, you kind of make their job easy, and by training them, it also takes care of a lot of other things that we expect in terms of maintenance. And so in this project, we kind of understood what goes in the life of a truck drivers or what are the problems that they face. So so then we started looking in detail of what are the parameters or what are the numbers and what risks do they take when they are on the highway. And based on that, we conceptualize the next project. In fact, uh, the client for whom we are doing this project, he saw the pause restrooms and was very impressed by that. And then he came to us saying that, oh, we want to build a similar idea, but only for truck drivers. We don't want any common public within this project. So now I would just like to share a film, a little 4-minute film that we have done on the truck drivers. So, and let's see that first, and maybe we can then go into a discussion of that project.
गाड़ी लाइफ में कोई ठिकाना नहीं, ना आपको खाना मिल लेता है सही ढंग से, ना कहीं नहाने का टाइम मिलता है, लेकिन अपना कोई पेट पालने के लिए तो कुछ तो काम करना ही ना पड़ेगा।
दिन में 500 किलोमीटर चलाना ही चलाना है, रात में 500 किलोमीटर चलाना है, सोते कहाँ हैं हम लोग। मैं रोड पे 15 दिन 20 दिन मैं चलता ही रहता हूँ। ट्रक ड्राइवर की ज़िंदगी बहुत बेकार है, वो रोटी पे कट जाती है उसकी ज़िंदगी।
धूल मिट्टी से तो मतलब डेली नहाना है, पानी से नहाए या आदमी या ना नहाए, लेकिन धूल मिट्टी से डेली नहाना है। घर परिवार का याद हमेशा ही आता रहता है, या खाना खाने वक्त कभी टाइम मिलता है, सोने वक्त, मतलब याद तो आना ही है।
सबसे ज्यादा किसको मिस करते हो?
माँ को, सबसे ज्यादा माँ को।
हमको हमारे बच्चों की और मम्मी की याद ज्यादा आती है।
बाहर जब हम निकलते हैं तो मेरा ये घर परिवार सब यही है। हमारा घर परिवार वहाँ भी है और यहाँ आने के बाद यहाँ भी है।
A documentary, not a documentary, but the idea and the problem that we have documented, onto which we have built this project. And these are some facts of the issues the truck drivers face: poor maintenance and poor sanitation. And now the shortage of drivers is becoming because they do not have good facilities along the highway. And it is a little scary because with the number of drivers go on reducing, I mean, the trucks carry a lot of domestic goods across the country, and if they are going short, then I think it's a time to worry. I mean, so I think it's high time we look into this issue and create facilities for them, so tomorrow we don't short of facilities. Yeah, so that's the elevation of the campus. So this is an 8,000 square feet campus. So all the ideas that we kind of started with the light box, and all the ideas that we kind of conceptualized, we were able to apply in this project, because this project is an amalgamation of all the ideas. It has a resting space, it has a toilet, it has a eating space, it has the tuck shop, then it has a sleeping area. So all the different facilities come together and make this campus. So so to make this campus, I would just like to take you through this building pattern, which will help you understand how this building was conceptualized. So that's the first is the first drawing is the site and the highway. It's a 2.5 acre site. Then we thought of dividing the site into three parts. And the triangle, so not that, the scale of the triangle was not allowing us to construct anything. And then we wanted to keep the amenities and the fuel station in the middle. So when one arrives, they can quickly identify that, and these two buildings are not placed in any corner. And so the fuel station has certain dimensions which we have to work with, and those are prescribed by the NHAI, which we have to follow. And then the brown triangle that you see in the third sketch is the site that we kind of sculpted to design these amenities. But when we counted the areas, so that was just coming to 7% of the total site area, which was quite compact and pretty tight. And we were quite happy with that, because the 93% is just open space, parking, landscape, fuel station, and other things. So the architecture was very less, but yet it allowed the community to kind of dwell on this project. And then that's the 7% we zoomed into. So the number 4 is the triangle site. So then we divided these triangles into smaller squares. So the bigger, the small, some are big and some are small. So the bigger squares were converted into activities, and the smaller squares were then converted into service facilities. And in the fifth image, we can see how the courtyards form. So the bigger courtyards are for public activities. The smaller courtyard is for the private activities. And then along the edge, we have those triangular shaped spaces. Those are toilets and wash basin area, or a grooming center, or a washing area, which kind of support those bigger courtyards. So in a way, it's a very technical drawing, which has bigger spaces which are supported by these smaller spaces. Yeah, and that's the site plan. That is how the building sits into the site, which is like a parallelogram. And the building sits like a the triangle in the parallelogram. And we have a big entry plaza in the front, which so we had to leave like a 10-meter setback from the edge of the site, that based on the bylaws. So that front area kind of allows one to have like a free open space to navigate along the elevation of the building and to enter the multiple facilities. And this is inside the eating courtyard. Again, the eating courtyard. But see, conceptually, what we were trying to do was, see, the truck drivers, I mean, as we saw in the film, they're constantly missing their home, and they're constantly talking about their home, that they're on the highways and, you know, all that. So that's where we thought we should take that as an idea and create this project. So then, so how does one create a home in this kind of a setting? Or into this kind of a project. So what we thought, we will create homes of smaller sizes and bigger sizes, and each home will offer a different activity. Like one home is to eat, then one home is to sleep, and one home is for recreational activities, and then and so on. And each home has then its ancillary facilities, like the home where you eat has a drinking water fountain, or a little tuck shop, or a little wash basin area, you know, like that. So and the closest reference in this to this context was the courtyard houses of the South India. That's why we thought, I think that would be like the closest reference which we can build on. And since it is located in Chitradurg, we thought we can also borrow that landscape and use that into the ports. So in a way, it kind of ties the project in terms of a concept as well as its its situation on that site. So that's where you see these boulders and the courtyards, and then there are people sitting around. So it's a very comforting space and very domestic, and then they start relating to the space in a way that they feel at home. Yeah, then this is again the eating court, which has these boulders and trees. Now this is a courtyard for recreation, which is connected to the fuel station. You can see on the back side. And then these courtyards have smaller pockets where these guys can just have a game of carom or sit and have a chai or even play cards. So in a way, they kind of uh, rejuvenate mentally, I would say, uh, and then they can stay overnight uh, and have a good sleep and freshen up, and then they're ready to next day to take off and uh, continue their journey uh, on the highway. And this is a sleeping court, so we have done bunk beds. But these bunk beds are not in dormitories. We have arranged them around the courtyard. So again, you have that fresh atmosphere and all those kinds of things. And these are some pictures of the site. I mean, I'm just showing them just to give you an idea of how the context looks like, because we saw everything in those rendered images. So we have just started hitting the site where they started lining out, and it's all beige color soil. And even we thought we would use the bricks from the local kiln. So even the color of the soil uh, becomes very important in that case to kind of represent the architecture. So in a way, the color of the soil and the courtyard and those boulders, they kind of reinforce this project in the context, and it really becomes like a home in true sense, not only for the people but for the building itself. So the building also is situated in its own home, which is built by its own materials, and then that's how this project would relate to the truck drivers community which are going along the highway. So just to kind of uh, compile all the thoughts, I mean, since I was thinking about this idea of people, objects, and environment, one wants to kind of go back and see what is the most basic uh, representation of that, or how does these three entities kind of matter or relate to. So if you see, like, space is a very neutral entity. I mean, space does not have any dimension, but what creates an identity of a space is people, the objects, and the environment, and together they create an architecture, okay, and aspiration for a habitat that is built or unbuilt, which is in a true sense architecture or landscape. But these three things are very critical and important in constructing what we see around us today. I mean, it is good, sometimes it is good, or sometimes it is bad.
Where does it go now? Okay. Thank you, Architect Rohan. That was a great session. It really brought into perspective the many variations that are possible within the confines of public washrooms, and how, as an entity, it can expand beyond its function of providing toilet facilities. It can be a place for social integration, habitation, solitude, that essentially responds to the idea of people, objects, and environment. So now we have few questions waiting for us in the chat box. So without any further ado, I will start the Q&A session. The first question is by Hardik Gupta. How do you ensure safety in public washrooms? So I think it's in continuation to the design of Lightbox, which was intended to provide women an exclusive social space. So, but in India, safety for women is an issue. So, like, how was that issue resolved?
Yeah. See, the whole idea of keeping the box transparent is to kind of ensure that everything is clean and everything is safe. Because in cities, spaces are already crowded. So people are constantly looking at things. And usually, illegal activities happen when people don't see a space or a particular area. So that's where the safety of women becomes important. So we try to address that through transparency.
So, yeah, I think that's great answer. So, like, eyes on the street, bringing more eyes on the street.
Yeah, because what happens is, many attacks on women happen in spaces which are not usually accessible. right? And so that's the important aspect which we try to capture through transparency, and that's where this opening box allows things to be clearly seen and be safe. And also light plays an important role in the safety of women, because dark spaces are not safe. Very lit spaces are safe.
I think those are really important design elements, light, transparency, in creating a toilet space. The next question is by Gina. What was the biggest challenge you faced while proposing a design to your clients? And what were the compromises that you had to make to get it approved?
While working in public domain, so one has to be very logical in terms of design thinking and the approach, which we had kept from start. If you see the light box, it's based on a certain principles, which then culminates into a design that we saw. So if one works with certain principles and they're logical enough and you can justify your design, then it's very easy to convince the client or the government. If we do not have like a very strong logic, then the design becomes very weak. In that case, we have to forcefully convince the client just to kind of get our design thinking through. So I think the principles and the logic is very important to kind of get things through. So in that sense, we did not face much of a challenge in convincing the government, because we were like through with our design.
Yeah, I mean, in continuation to what you're saying, like toilets also, they have to be affordable and cost effective, but it can be somehow restrictive for an architect because it limits the many possibilities of what can happen and what may not happen. So like the next question is by Anand, who is in 5th year right now. And he asks that how as an architect yourself, do you maintain that balance of affordability and cost effective, and also are able to make the best of the given opportunities?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't get some context.
Yeah, sure. So basically, how as an architect yourself, do you maintain that balance of creativity and cost effectiveness? And then how are you able to make the best of the given opportunity?
See, creativity is very subjective. The way we look at creativity is dealing with real-life problems by setting certain principles and defining a certain logic. And whatever aesthetics come out of that, that is something we try to nourish and take forward in our design. If you see, all our projects, they are very much based on certain principles, are very much based on a very clear logic and a thought process. So then it becomes very easy to strike that balance between working in public domain and playing the role of an architect, and at the same time creating spaces that are aesthetically soothing to people. Even what we try to also do is try to make our design a lot more human-centric, because in public domain, that's the success of the design life. Like if you see the truck driver's village, it's a completely different approach, which is take steel and all that. So the idea is just to create a space where they feel comfortable. So the idea is to think about people while being creative, but not try to think about your own dreams, like what you want to do as an architect, but rather what people want as a part of the society. So that is more important. And that's where the creativity comes out.
Like driving the design by the demands of the users and like trying to find creativity in that space.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thought while approaching the design.
Yes.
And also it's a good giveaway for the next question, which is by Sahiba. So you mentioned that truck drivers use, like in pause, the way truck drivers use a public toilet is very different from regular users, which somehow seeded the concept of segregated toilet spaces. So let me expand on what Saiba might want to ask, is that what are the distinctive design features that are used in structuring a toilet for truck drivers? And like what makes it different from a toilet used by regular travelers or people who are just coming?
First of all, the truck drivers are comfortable using an Indian WC, and the travelers are comfortable using a European WC. So that is the biggest difference. And then small details like the kind of the fats that we use, or inside the truck driver's toilet there's no health pocket, but there is a mug and a tap, you know. And even the spaces for the truck drivers, though the building is contemporary, but we have tried to use all the vernacular furniture, which kind of helps them to be more comfortable in that space.
Okay. Yeah. So isn't like false smell an issue then? Like especially in washrooms in India, in public washrooms, they unfortunately carry a false smell. But then you have designed a community space like Pause that consists of a barber shop. It consists of a space for conversation, banking facilities.
Yeah. No, the foul smell is an issue, but like what we tried to do here, especially in Pause, there are dedicated people who maintain this space. Even the truck driver's toilet and even the visitor's toilet is properly maintained by the staff. And we're also using biodigesters. So all the waste is decomposed inside, and the output is just methane gas. So there's no foul smell as such generated within the campus. But only the spaces are like well ventilated and well lit, which also adds to that whole experience.
I think the next question is with Mohammed. Like he was asking about the issue of bad smell also, and like whether like you have used courtyard and you say about lighting and ventilation. Like is that really an effective solution in India? Like is the climate for India, like a city in cities in India, because we don't have the best examples around us. So, like, do you feel as an architect when you approached, was it able to solve those issues effectively in that respect?
So, courtyard as in used in the toilet?
Yeah.
See, a courtyard has been used in many projects since many hundreds and thousands of years before. So, it is a very effective space that way. And in the toilet, we used only in one project, that is the toilet and courtyard. And I do feel that it is effective because it kind of not only gives light ventilation to the space, but also solves the problem of containing the floating crowd that comes to use the urinals. So it's also a functional entity as well as light ventilation is sorted from that. So in a way, you don't have to kind of give openings on the periphery, especially for light and ventilation. But the courtyard helps you solve that problem in a way.
I hope that answered your question, Bhumik. So the next question is by Kunal Jain, and it is also something Sunil was interested to know. Do you think signages can be considered as an important design tool in architecture? Like signages are an important tool in communication design, but in architecture.
Yes. See, I mean, in a public project, signages become important because there are no people to guide you to, go where, which direction. Like the best example is the airport. The airport has such refined and proper signages that you don't miss out on anything. So how an airport, after you land, you come out and there's always a arrow that shows you towards the exit, and then you keep walking and keep going till you exit the airport. So I mean, I'm just giving an example, but in architecture, especially in public projects, it becomes more important. In the bungalows and houses, you don't need signages. Just name of the house is enough. But schools and colleges, institutions, everywhere you need like signage, which are well designed and it can communicate.
Yeah, like it helps to communicate very well. And like also along the lines, I observed how you use colors very prominently in your design. So it can be the red in walls washrooms or the use of pink in the light box. So like was that a conscious choice? Like
Yeah, so the thing is, so in the light box, if you see the material palette is all grey and silver, So with that kind of a palette, the spaces were, looking a little boring at the start. So we just thought of introducing a nice color in the floor. So in fact, the pink color is the brand identity of the NGO who initiated this, why we have used this, because they wanted to create a brand identity of these restrooms having the green and pink, which went along with their other collateral. And in pause, it was very specific because this whole idea of visual communication played an important role, because if you see like on these Xerox centers, so it's yellow, it's like black on yellow, it clearly identifies like a Xerox, or all BST buses are red or the post boxes are red. So there's a clear visual language that is set in urban landscape. So that's where this whole idea of toilet should be red or whatever bright color they should be. It should be clearly, seen, very prominently seen within the urban landscape. So, for example, how like one indicating an essay with a marker, we highlight the important points. So it's a very similar thing. So all the important facilities within the city should be highlighted with something, either a color or a pop-up signage or any other idea.
Yeah, I agree. Like using colors that really highlight the space. Like if people are coming from a distance, they can actually see, that's the light.
See, that's how, again, I think I can go back to that question on creativity. See, here, it was not like my aspiration, I like red color, so I want to use red color, and, so we were not held in with that. So we had a clear logic of, why that color has to be, how does that, how will it communicate to people. So all this thought process was there behind it. Otherwise, you will never be able to convince the client to paint an entire building red. It's very tough, to be very honest. No?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so the next and the last question by Lavina. How are lightweight temporary structures made to withstand extreme weather conditions? For instance, the light box, which was built in Thane, a city where heavy rainfall falls every monsoon. So, how was the structure made to be resilient in there?
So, see, in the complexes we have built, there is not too much issue of floods. But yes, rain is an issue. But the thing is, the rain comes inside that middle area through the perforated screen. Okay? Because see, even people are walking outside, it's raining, they carry an umbrella and walk. Okay? In the light box, the rain doesn't come from the top, but just some drops of water come from the side. But it does not wet the entire box, only like a foot or a foot and a half on the edges. It kind of gets wet inside. But the toilet blocks are completely sealed, so not a single drop of water goes inside the spaces, the private spaces of the toilet. But the top is completely sealed, so no rain comes from the top.
I think with that we can conclude this session. Thank you, architect Rohan Chavan, for taking out time from your busy schedule and introducing the audience to your design proposals, which highlighted how public infrastructure should be conceptualized in cities and respond to the context and neighborhoods they are inhabiting. I'm sure listeners have a lot to think about after the presentation and the following Q&A session.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for actually inviting me to present for this event. And I think it was very important to kind of communicate these ideas, especially in the times we are now struggling with how one can be efficient and optimum in the cities.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And also for all our listeners and audience, do tune into the next session in the series on 19th October from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the occasion of World Toilet Day. The talk will be held by architect Pratima Joshi on dissecting master plan project toilet. So thank you again, Architect Rohan Chavan. Thank you everyone joining in.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.